In this lecture, we will introduce a new data structure in Java that is called an array. An array in Java is a special kind of object that is used to store a collection of data. Before we talk about the syntax and semantics of arrays in Java, first we need to explain to you when an array is needed in our programs. Then we will discuss and talk in details on how to define an array for a certain data type, how to initialize an array, or how to read data and store them into an array. Also, we will discuss how to access individual elements of an array and how to process arrays using for loops, followed by how to create array of objects and how to pass arrays to method as parameters and so on. So let's begin. We will start our discussion by introducing the following opening problem. Suppose you want to compute the average temperature for the 7 days in a week. If we want to write a program to compute the average for such temperatures, the question is how many variables do we need for these 7 temperatures? A naive solution is that we assign a variable for each temperature. We read the whole temperatures, we write the equation for computing the average, which is the summation over 7, and then we print the result. The second solution is by defining only one variable for all of these temperatures, and this variable will read the temperatures one at a time. Of course, the first approach is naive. It's not practical that you define 7 variables for the temperatures, because imagine that you have 100 temperatures. So it's not practical you define 100 variables and you write a long equation to find the answer. So the other solution is that you define a single variable that is going to read the temperatures one at a time. Since what we need is to compute the average, so all what we need is to go over the temperatures one by one, find their summations, and divide by their count, which is the number of temperatures. So every time you read a temperature in this variable, then you accumulate its value to another variable that is used to accumulate or to hold the summation. But in this approach, since you are using a single variable to read the whole temperatures, whenever you read a temperature, then its previous value is gone and it's not saved anywhere and does not exist. But do we really need these previous values? The answer is no. Why? Because anytime we read a value of a temperature, we use it, we add it to the summation, and then we don't need it anymore. Therefore, we use the same variable for reading the next temperature. In other words, since we need to read the temperatures one at a time to compute the average, one variable is enough to do the job. This is the code that will compute the average temperature for the 7 days in a week. We are creating a scanner object. We're asking the user to enter 7 temperatures, and then we go into a loop that repeats 7 times, and inside the loop we are reading the 7 temperatures one at a time, and each time we add the temperature to a variable called sum, and after we finish we go outside the loop and we print the average, which is equal to sum over 7. Now let us change the problem requirement and suppose that you need to know which temperatures are above and which temperatures are below the average. To answer this question, then you need to remember the 7 temperatures. But in our code here, whenever you read a temperature, then the previous temperature is gone, does not exist, and it is not saved anywhere in the memory. So how to change the code to solve the problem according to this new requirement? One way to do that, by using the naive approach we have discussed before, is to declare 7 variables for each temperature, because you need to keep these temperatures after you compute the average. And then you write an if statement for these 7 variables one at a time, comparing them with the average. But again, this is naive and it is not practical and it is a wrong approach. Imagine the same thing you want to do for 365 days. Then, is it practical to declare 365 days and write 365 if statements? That is really absurd and wrong. The efficient way to remember the 7 temperatures is that instead of defining a single variable for each temperature, we group these variables together into a collective item that forms one unit or a group of these variables. After that, whenever we want to use any of these variables, either for reading or writing, it is referred or accessed by the group name as well as by its location within the group. The location of the variable inside the group represents the index that the Java system uses to locate this variable inside the group. This group of these variables is called an array. So let us define formally what is an array in Java. Let us show you how to define an array and how to access an array as well.